Moving to a new country can change your life, but it's not for everyone. So if you've been struggling with the decision of whether to move abroad or not, then hopefully this video can help. I'm Kristin, the author of Moving Abroad for Dummies, and on this channel, we like to talk about the realities of living abroad and not just sugarcoating them. So subscribe if you want some real talk. Now, first and foremost, think twice about moving abroad if your main reason for doing so is to escape something. I once saw an RV in Mexico that had this sign painted on the sign that said, "My home is in my head." And that really stuck with me because wherever you go, there you are. And a lot of the personal problems and challenges and struggles of life are gonna follow you to another country. Now, of course, you can solve some problems by moving somewhere else. You can change your cost of living, you can get out of a bad housing situation, out of a bad relationship situation, you can find a better quality of life, you can find more safety. But if you're just going to get away from something, make sure you have something to balance that out, of something that you're moving towards, some type of vision that you have for yourself in your life abroad if you want to be fulfilled and happy in the long term. You do change your perspective when you move abroad, but certain hardships of life, paying bills, dealing with people, the ups and downs of the roller coaster of life, those are going to go with you anywhere you go. So it's really important to be moving towards something that you want for yourself and not just certain people, places, and things that you're trying to get away from. Moving abroad can also create new problems that you didn't know you had, like how to drive on the left side of the road, or how to pay your bills, how to use your washing machine if you have one, and don't even get me started on the metric system. But let me know why you're moving abroad in the comments below. I also recommend thinking seriously about your plan to move abroad. If you're the kind of person who likes things to always stay the same, you like consistency, because when you go abroad, you're gonna upend everything in life and start over. Everything changes, from how to order your coffee in the morning to how to get around on public transportation, how your daily routine pans out. So if you're the kind of person who likes a lot of order and structure, navigating a new country, a new language, a different bureaucracy, customs, culture, this is all gonna be a big shock to the system, and it's called culture shock for a reason. So I've witnessed a lot of people in my 20 years of travel and living abroad that are really fixed in their ways, but having a flexible mindset when things happen differently or things go wrong compared to how you want them to be is really helpful. Because I've seen a lot of people who, move abroad for a better life, and then they can't cope with those changes, and then they just don't seem happy, even when they're sitting on a beautiful beach at sunset with a nice drink. The good news, though, is that personal growth happens outside of your comfort zone, as cliche as it sounds. And the more that you stretch yourself and put yourself in different situations, the more you're going to grow as a person. And so if you find yourself, in London complaining about the weather, or in Costa Rica complaining about how slow things move, then that just might be you not being able to adapt to the change in that country. One person I saw online wrote, "I moved to Portugal thinking it would be just like the US, but cheaper. Nope, everything took longer and I couldn't get anything done. I was miserable for a year until I realized the problem wasn't Portugal. It was me. I was trying to live like an American in a country that doesn't value hustle culture." Moving abroad might also not be for you if you're not ready to start over. So one of the beautiful things about moving abroad is you get to start with a clean slate. You get to completely reinvent who you are, what you do, what you like, and how people see you. Having lived in so many different countries, I always found it really interesting that people who meet you at a certain phase of your life, they only know you from that narrow window. And so if you've ever reinvented yourself before, if you've changed careers or changed hobbies or changed priorities in your life, then the people you meet during that time are only going to know that snapshot of your life. So maybe you were married with kids and now you're divorced and single, and then the people who meet you now don't even know that you have a family. And likewise, you might have changed jobs. Maybe you went from engineering into graphic design, and the people who meet you see you as like this creative artist, whereas before people saw you as a mathematician. Here in Miami, a lot of people associate me with music because I learned how to DJ and produce music here during the pandemic. And a lot of them don't even know what I do for work or that I have this YouTube channel. So when you go abroad, you get to present yourself in a new way. You get to know who you are without the backdrop of your home culture, your hometown, your friends and family who've known you all of your life. And there's definitely beauty to that because they've known you ever since you were a kid. But there's also opportunity in getting to, start a business in another country, or retire somewhere, or get a job in a different country and meet new people at work that you wouldn't have if you were staying back at home. But on the flip side, this also means that you do have to rebuild everything. You have to make new friends. You need to rebuild your reputation at work, which you could have spent decades building. And so it is a lot of work, and you've got to start at that small talk level with people before getting to know them on a deeper level. So if the idea of starting over and rebuilding and reinventing yourself sounds really exciting and invigorating, then moving abroad probably is for you. But if it sounds exhausting and isolating and terrifying, then maybe it's not for you. But definitely examine that, because maybe it could be just what you need. I talk a lot about this and also culture shock in my book, Moving Abroad for Dummies, so make sure to check that out. I think we have a whole chapter dedicated to this and how to adapt in these types of ways to life after you get to a new country. On that note, moving abroad might not be for you if you're not comfortable with being different. Now, I know all of us want to make friends with the locals, and we even romanticize this idea about living like a local, but the reality is that the locals aren't going to see us like locals for some time, or maybe even forever. There's language barriers, there's cultural differences, and so if you're not okay with being perceived a bit differently in another country, then it's gonna be a struggle. I mean, if you're a 6'7" tall white man living in Japan, you're gonna stand out. In my case, I've been speaking Spanish for 20 years, but no matter where I go in Latin America, people assume that I don't speak Spanish because of how I look. And even when I do speak Spanish, I still have a gringa accent. You might feel really comfortable and integrated into that country, but chances are, even if you've been there for years or decades, new local people that you meet, especially people who don't know you, they're not gonna know how long you've been there, and they might still see you as a bit of an outsider. So it's definitely possible to make friends with local people, and I have a lot of friends in different countries who I'm better friends with than people in my hometown. And it's also nice to be an outsider as well, because it gives people an opportunity to ask you questions. They could be curious about you, where you're from, what your country is like. And this is a great part about the human experience, because of all the countries I've traveled to, the ones that are most interesting and unique and dynamic are the ones that are a melting pot of people rather than being really closed off. So it's nice to have that international mix of people wherever you go and get to learn things from each other, and also share a little bit about you and your culture while you're, starting to fit in and integrate at the same time. Think twice about moving abroad if you like to have control over everything. If you've structured your life in your home country in a way that there's a lot of predictability, a lot of repetition, and you're just kind of in your routine in your day-to-day life, this can create a foundation for being able to be creative and do other things when you've got your basics covered. But that can also, kind of be like Groundhog Day if you're used to doing the same thing every day. Then when you go to a new country, everything's different and a lot of things are outside of your control. So I was actually laughing. I found this guy online who said, I moved abroad for a simpler life, and now I spend half my time in immigration offices and the other half deciphering water bills. I've definitely done both of those things, or waited in line in banks and a lot of other things that you didn't know you had to do. Like one person said, my new hobby is explaining why my documents need an apostille to myself. So having patience, especially with bureaucracy, and having a sense of humor when things go wrong goes a really long way. Many times I found myself taking a road on Google Maps that really wasn't a road, it was a river or it was stairs, and things are just gonna happen that you're not expecting. Even after 20 years of travel, like, I still confront things that I could have never anticipated. And so if you're the kind of person that really needs to have control over things, and then all of a sudden there's a labor strike happening and the trains are out of service or the airport's closed or the road's blocked off, then yeah, it's going to be a bumpy road definitely when you're living abroad. So keep an open mind on that one. This next one is a big one. So I've helped close to 1,500 people move abroad over my career, and the one thing that everyone had in common was some source of income, whether that comes from savings, a job, a remote job, a business, a pension, passive income, whatever it is. I've helped people from 18 years old to 80 years old move abroad, and all of them had some form of income. So there's definitely stories of people, getting on a flight and figuring it out when they get there to a new country, but I really wouldn't recommend that because you might not have the right visa that allows you to work. It might take a lot longer than you think to find a job. If you don't have one, your savings might not go as far as you expect them to, and then even if you do find a job, it might not pay what you're used to making back home. So make sure that you have some kind of financial plan before you move abroad, and that you know where your paycheck or where your money's coming from. And if you don't, it's okay to postpone for a little bit and save up extra money. I think having at least 3 to 6 months of savings up to a year is really important. People might also ask you for it if you're trying to rent an apartment or a house somewhere in a very competitive market. They might want to see 6 months or a year of bank statements. And so if you don't have that, then you're going to lose out on opportunities to other people who are more financially prepared. So this might not be as important in places where the cost of living is below $1,000 per month, but make sure you know if you feel comfortable moving based on your savings and then finding a job or an income source once you get there, or if you're the kind of person that you want to have that set up before you go. So I've helped people on both sides, but everyone had at least something saved up, a little buffer room before they make the move. And if you want some help with figuring out how much money you need to move abroad, then I will link to my moving abroad budget in the description below. A very delicate topic, very personal, is thinking twice about moving abroad if your partner isn't on board. So I work with a lot of couples, and we ask a lot of personal questions around this because I've seen it before where people have come to us who haven't disclosed to their partner that they're thinking about moving abroad and don't know if or when they're going to tell them. And we also talk with a lot of people who aren't really on the same page as far as timeline, when they want to move abroad, where they want to go, or even if they want to move abroad at all. Typically, there's one person in the relationship that wants this more than the other one. So it's really important to have those conversations before you go. And in extreme cases, and sometimes go separate ways. I've talked with people that were engaged and broke off an engagement because they really wanted to go abroad, and their spouse, their future spouse, didn't feel the same way and they wanted to live in different places. I've done the same thing myself, ended a relationship because I didn't want to live in the place where my partner was at. And I know of at least one couple that both of them wanted to move abroad, but they wanted to go to different countries. They got divorced, and one went to the Philippines and one went to Germany. So this doesn't mean don't move abroad. It just means to have these conversations before you move so that you can do the right thing for both parties. The good news is that even if you identified with some of the reasons not to move abroad in this video, there's really no such thing as failure in living abroad. I've actually never met anyone in my life who told me that they regretted moving abroad, even if it didn't work out for them long term, even if they decided to cut it shorter than they expected. Whether you're able to go for a month or 3 months or a year or a few years, it's going to be an amazing experience. It's not something that you have to do forever permanently. You're definitely going to grow from that experience. So don't let any of these reasons hold you back if it's something that you really want to do. I'll link to some free moving abroad resources in this video description. You can also pick up a copy of my book or reach out to my team for a free consultation if you'd like some help. And if you're curious about where most people are moving abroad these days and why, watch these videos next.